Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Trust the Science for Sunday, the 10th of November, 2024. I'm joined here again by Dr. Jerry Waters. And how are you doing, Jerry? How's things?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, it's been a very pleasant weekend. I got to admit, I'm doing a little bit of campaigning, meeting up with people, trying to get my general election campaign on the road. As are you. I know you've been out campaigning.
I have been out all day. Yeah, I was in that Donaghmede shopping centre today for 3 hours. Jesus, I spoke to about 1,000 people. It was brilliant, really
Yeah.
brilliant, I have to say. And all I tell you, I got three people brush me aside, Well, hey, listen, you're going to get that. You're not going to get everyone that loves you. You know what I mean? But it has been great. How's your own campaign going?
Well, it hasn't really started yet. But there again, I'm coming from probably a different perspective in the sense that I'm very, very well known in the area and have been for 40 years. Not that I would presume that will make that much difference, but are you knocking on doors and that? Are you going house to
Yeah,
house?
yeah, I didn't today. I know I do every other day now. I've been out for the last week, I'd say, knocking on doors, and it's been a great response. Now, as I said, you get one or two who just say no, I don't want them, and you just leave it at that. But
Mhm.
most of the people now that I'm knocking at know who. Well, they know a lot of them know who I am. You know what I mean? A lot of them watch the other show, the Irish Column, and
Mhm.
a lot of them today said to me, "Oh, I can't wait till tonight. I'll see you on the show tonight at 9 o'clock." So it's brilliant that we're getting out there. Our faces are being seen. You know what I mean? And people
Yeah,
know who
yeah,
we are.
yeah.
It's really
So,
good.
so, so you feel that the podcasts have a very definite positive
Oh,
effect?
yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And the same with Anthony because Anthony gets it as well. People, even when we go to protests, even people have stopped me on the street and told me how great the podcast is. They look forward to it every Sunday night. You know what I mean? And people ask me, "Are you doing the podcast tonight with Dr. Jerry?" I said, "I am indeed." I said, "We're going to be doing it every Sunday night." So, well, for the foreseeable future, unless we get into the doll, we might have an odd Sunday that we might still do it. But listen, we could do it from the office in there.
It's nice to think that it is getting some traction, that people um are watching it. By the same token, I'd be doing it not necessarily to to canvas. I'd be doing it because I firmly believe that people need to know the truth. Um,
Exactly.
like if anything, if I managed to get to a couple of 100,000 people in Ireland by virtue of podcasts and that, and never got into the doll, I considered that my run was successful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's this is hugely important to me to make sure that the truth is told, and that we open a a conversation, that we open a debate on the well, principally on the massive crime of COVID. But I'm also hugely concerned about the crime of global warming, anthropogenic global warming, the lie of carbon dioxide being
Yeah.
an appreciable greenhouse gas, or
Yeah.
methane, or that. So it's hugely important, as far as I'm concerned, to get into the doll and have somebody in there with a very definite scientific and medical knowledge. But equally as important is to awaken the people to the fact that they've been lied to. They've been lied to, particularly over the last 4 years, but then they've been lied to for the last 40 years in relation to global cooling, global warming, and climate change, because
Yeah.
that lie has been used to destroy farming, to make farming more costly, and hence push up the price of food, to drive farmers out of farming so that they can put in windmills and solar panels. And that's what's happening. So we've got to stop that. And like this is way beyond anything that's important to me. This is way beyond the relevance of my life, primarily because it affects my children and affects my grandchildren. So we've got to get to people. We've got to awaken the debate, because when the debate awakens and is in full flow, the truth will come out. Sorry, I finished.
Sorry, Jerry. I got a call there from somebody
Yeah,
while we were talking. I had to take it.
yeah. Well, you see,
But
that's the
yeah, I
problem with
agree.
this man.
Yeah. But the reason I like doing this is because people didn't believe me about I was a conspiracy theorist and I was a COVID denier, and I'm a global warming denier. I don't believe in the climate hoax. I don't believe in any of that stuff. As I said, I'm 55 years of age, Jerry. I've had 5 of these global warmings, 5 of these scares. You know what I mean? And we're still here. There's nothing wrong. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
You see, this is the point. The point really is that they have got a stranglehold on the media, and the media is totally, absolutely, and completely corrupt. The
Yeah.
media will not tell the truth, and the media will not allow the likes of me on to debate. Now,
Mm.
there's a saying: if you cut out a man's tongue, it's not because you're afraid he's lying. You cut out a man's tongue because you know he's telling the truth. And and,
Yeah.
and and that's very, very true. When I was suspended from the Irish Medical Register in 2021, March 21, because I wouldn't give the vaccine, no producer from a television program, no reporter from a mass media from anywhere came near me. I was totally, completely blanked. Now, it seems strange that a doctor of 40 years standing would be deprived of his income, would be in effect struck from the register, even though they didn't use the word a strike off. They used the word a suspension, because it's a temporary thing. 3.5 years later, mind you, or nearly 4 years later, they twisted the law. But so nobody wanted to debate me. Nobody wanted to discuss it with me. Now that says something, doesn't it? When the 11 or 12 doctors who stood in judgment of me wouldn't get into the ring with me, wouldn't discuss it, wouldn't debate, like that says an awful lot. Why would they not get into debate? Am I such a great debater? Probably not. But I'm only a great debater because I've got truth on my side. And
Yeah,
that is
that's
the
true.
reality. When you have truth on your side, you terrify the liars. And the people who have a vested interest in pushing an agenda. And then again, there's a huge amount of ignorance, because you can't expect people. You can't expect the average person, and you can't even expect journalists to understand the nuances of, say, COVID
Yeah.
or winter viral infections. You can't expect them to understand the nuance of global warming, carbon dioxide, the methane, the absorbance spectrum, the spectrum of electromagnetic energy that's absorbed by carbon dioxide. You can't expect the average person to understand that. That's
Mm.
fine. But people like me who do should be allowed to debate it and discuss it, but they don't. They cut out our tongues.
Well, that's exactly. I said this. I said this last year. I was trying to get Ray Bates on the show. You know Ray Bates. Ray Bates is
No,
the
no, I
Ray
don't know
Bates
who
is
it
one.
is.
Ray Bates is one of the top. Well, I tell you, there was two Ray Bates. Ray Bates was the man who used to sign your check when you won the lotto. When I said Ray Bates to somebody, he said, "Oh, is that the fellow who used to sign your check?" I said, "No, Ray Bates was. He was a scientist, and he was against the global warming. He wrote papers and everything else and sent them in the whole lot to say the earth wasn't cool and this, that, and he wasn't listened to. And last year I tried to reach out to him, and the poor man died. I think this year he died early this year, so we couldn't really get him on then. But he was one that did speak out against it, and he was never on a show. I never saw Ray Bates on a show talking about anything because he didn't agree with it. And that's exactly why you're not on shows, Jerry, because you don't agree with it. You're going to tell the truth, and they don't like the truth. That's the problem here.
Well, this is the crazy thing. For 8 or 9 years, I was on RTE. I was on Open House live at 3 with Marty Whelan, Sienna Campbell, Mary Kennedy. I was a darling of RTE for 9 years, and then suddenly, when I had no, when I was no longer on the right side of the propaganda, I was persona non grata. I was absolutely not required, and nobody had my telephone number anymore, which was kind of sad. But not only was I excluded, but I was also insulted. I
You
was
just keep
insulted.
talking there for a minute, Jerry. I'm just this battery. There's something wrong with the power. Just give me a minute.
Yeah. Um, looks like I'm on my own here. But this is the problem when you've got a totally corrupt and bought mass media. If you have it used to be called the fourth estate. It was a system whereby politicians were kept under control. That's gone now. And it's gone primarily because the mass media, well, in the world, if you've heard any sort of commentary on the Trump debate, the Trump election, and irrespective of whether you like or dislike Trump, and he's a man that would be easy enough to dislike, but he's also a man that's easy enough to like. But if you hear anything about him on radio, American radio or American mass media, you will find that 98% of coverage of him is negative, and only 2% of coverage of him is positive. Now, why is that? Primarily because the companies that own the television programs or the television stations in America are owned by 6 men. These 6 men have a vested interest in not getting Trump in. They obviously failed in the last week, and Trump did manage to get elected, and not only get elected, but won the popular vote, won the House, won the Senate, and has increased the number of governorships. So obviously the stranglehold on the mass media didn't work. Here in Ireland, you might well ask, why would RTE and Virgin and all the radio stations go down the road of the well, in our case, being against a discussion on COVID or being against a discussion on the messenger RNA vaccine, so-called, or for that matter, why would they be against discussing anthropogenic global warming or cooling or climate change? Primarily because it's government policy. The government don't allow them to deviate from the set agenda. And like that's crazy. It's absolutely like nothing can be solved. No, science can't move forward. We cannot trust the science. It's impossible to trust the science if, in effect, the science is not, if you can't discuss it, because science is an evolving phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. And I kept saying during the start of the COVID thing, when Fauci was saying, I am the science, well, when he said, I am the science, I kept saying, it's not the science. You must trust the scientific method. And the scientific method is, in effect, a way of getting to the truth. There's a number of steps that you test a hypothesis, and you ask questions, and you get to the truth. And that is the scientific method. So when we say trust the science, we should be saying trust the scientific method. Sorry, Paul, you're back there now.
I'm back there now. No, I had a problem. It popped up there that the battery was gone for some reason. I didn't know what it was, so I had to run out. And of course, the children took the charger that was here. That's why the thing went off.
That's the nature of having children.
Oh, God almighty, it's brutal, isn't it? Well, it's great in so many ways, but it can be brutal in other ways, Mm-hmm. Listen, we were just talking about the hoax there, the climate hoax there and the whole lot, right? I just have a guy there posted up. Jerry, we need posters this week. Bubbles. He must live around beside you, does he there? What's this? Here he is here. Come on, Jerry, let's do Leakslip and Selbridge this week.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no problem. We're I only got my leaflets yesterday, and the posters have been printed up. You see, I would differ. I would differ from many people, particularly I'm no doubt I differ from you, Paul, in a sense that I believe there is such a thing as election fatigue. And all the people who are, running in the election are all enthused about it. The people out there aren't. The people out there really are pissed off at it. They're thrilled when all the posters come down. And remember, we only had an election there in June. So what I'm saying is, I believe there is fatigue, and I believe when you got 15 or 20 people knocking on doors, the people kind of get pissed off and get annoyed. As you say, you may say they're being polite, they're polite to you, but as a non-political person, and over a 50-year period, I didn't like people. I didn't like people knocking on my door. I didn't like people traipsing onto my property. And as I say, I think the politicians don't appreciate that. And also within people, there's a concept of the hypocrisy, You don't see, like, there's Bernard Durkin here in North Kildare. You don't see Bernard for 4 years. And then he's all out there, all grinning like a Cheshire cat, shaking hands, and how lovely to see you. I've been around Celbridge for 4 years, and I've been done a lot of walking. I've never seen or heard or any of the politicians around the area. Not
Same here.
one of them, and that's the hypocrisy of it. And I to an extent, I'm just not a hypocritical person. It's just that idea that I'm starting down a road that I decried for the last 50 years of my life, I am going out, I am going to meet people, but I also realize that sort of that invasion of these politicians and the coterie of henchmen around them is it isn't looked on that well by the normal people out there. And you see, unfortunately, in the bubble that we're in with them, with in the Irish Freedom Party or Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or Sinn Féin or that, you're in a bubble of people who actually believe that they're happy to see us. And because people are half polite to us at the doorway, doesn't necessarily mean that they're delighted to see us. They're actually happier to get rid of us and get back to their television program, or even if they're watching ads. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to campaign. But it does go against my grain. It goes against my sort of anti-hypocrisy concept. Because the question is, after the election, even if I did get elected, am I going to be out shaking hands and grinning like a Cheshire cat and banging people on the back and that, I don't know if I will or not. But, it's just something that kind of grates with my conscience.
Yeah. I like going out now, to be honest. I like meeting people. I'm a real people person.
We're totally different. No, I don't know if we are different, Paul. But remember, we've got a different perspective, within a society, Like I was one of 4 doctors in a town of 25,000 people,
Yeah, so everyone knows you either way.
Yeah, see, that's just it. Plus, now I got to admit, I'm the only doctor in the town would go for a pint in the town.
Yeah.
I've never seen in the 40 years I've been here, have I any of the other doctors go for a pint in the town, I have done so. I am and more used to getting out and chatting to people in pubs. The problem, obviously, in pubs is that people invariably come up to you and present you with medical problems, Like, in all honesty, the number of times I've been in the loo or somebody came up and said, Jerry, what's that rash, on my arm or his leg? Honest to God. And, and you see, you have 2 ways of responding. You can actually enter into a medical consultation, which is in effect a medical contract. So if you come up to me with a rash on your arm or your leg or wherever, and I look at it, I am entering into a medical consultation. I am then taking on the responsibility of treating that. Believe it or not, that's the way the law sees it. That if I agree to look at, or feel the bump on your arm or your leg, or look at the cut or something, I then take medical responsibility. And if it happens that something goes wrong, it gets infected, or I make a misdiagnosis that I miss a cancer in a bump or something like that, they can sue me.
Jerry Waters told me that there was nothing wrong with it.
Well, I saw. No, it wouldn't be. I had a consultation with Dr. Waters, where in the loo of the Celbridge House, or the Castletown Inn, and you say, how could you have a consultation in there? Well, I said to him, look at that, and he looked at it, and that is the contract. That is the medical contract. When I agreed to look at something, believe it or not. The crazy thing is, when I was an RTE, it would happen regularly. And the fun thing is, what happens is you're in a bar somewhere down in Kiltimagh, or in West Clare or wherever, in Donegal, and you people are spotting you, and you go to the loo, and a guy will jump up and run into the loo after you and kind of introduce, are you the doctor off the television? You say, yeah, I am, yeah. Geez, what's Marty Whelan like? Marty's a lovely guy, you know. Mary Candy, yeah, she's a nice person, yeah. I tell you, have a look at this rash. This is honest to God. Have a look at this rash. You say, but I can't look at a rash. I can't look at so. Jesus, why? Because I can't. You know, I'm not on duty. I would have asked you to be on duty. I'm just asking you to have a look at it.
Have a look. Like
like is that syphilis or whatever? You know.
Yeah.
But you know, and then I say, look, you know, but usually I say, look, I'm not looking at your rash. I'm not looking at your rash. Oh, Jays, you're a cranky bastard. You come across not like, you know, on the television you come across as a nice bloke, but you're a cranky bastard. You won't even look at me. Honest to God, that has happened to me on a number of occasions. And this wasn't even patients from Savage. This is in bloody West Clare or someplace, you know. So it's very easy. It'd be very easy to go around with a balaclava helmet on you all the time, you know.
Yeah. Listen, we'll move on to this one here that we have. It's about how COVID injections cause cancer and how to defeat it. Okay, I'm just gonna have it. I'm gonna share it.
I just popped it up myself.
I'll share this screen here now. This is it here. By October 2022, there was a significant increase in 14 different types of cancers across 44 countries, particularly among young people. The American Cancer Society reported that cancer mortality in young people had doubled compared to pre-2020 levels. Pfizer's 2022 safety report on COVID vaccines documented thousands of cancer cases following vaccinations, with 3,711 cases reported in 2022, in June 2022. UK oncologist Angus Dalgleish, a great man, observed aggressive cancer relapses in patients who had received COVID booster vaccines, suggesting a link between the vaccines and cancer. Canadian oncologist William Mackis noted unprecedented cases of stage 4 cancers in young adults, describing them as turbo cancer due to their aggressive nature and resistance to conventional treatments. Pathologist Ryan Cole criticised COVID injections for causing immune suppression, which impairs the body's ability to fight cancer, and reported a significant increase in cancer cases post-vaccine rollout. Cole estimated that 17 million people have died due to mRNA injections, describing the situation as a silent holocaust and criticizing the medical establishment for denying these deaths. It is important to fully appreciate the spike protein burden in the vaccinated in order to be able to find the best strategies to reverse the risk and damage of the toxin. The better we understand these processes, the better we will be able to defend patients and the public against the imminent coming years and record-breaking cancer rates, Dr. Colleen Hoover wrote in a recent essay.
Right. Can I just cut in there?
Yeah.
There's little doubt, but that the vaccine has. I should use the word. The word vaccine slips into my mouth, but it was never a vaccine. It was never intended as a vaccine. It's a gene therapy. Now, people come to me and say, how can you use the word therapy? Because therapy would suggest that it has a beneficial effect. But unfortunately, that is the terminology that the Pfizers and the pharmaceutical companies use. They refer to it as gene therapy. So it's safer from my point of view to refer to it as a gene therapy using their terminology. So from a legal point of view, that is the term they use, even though you're right. There is no therapeutic effect in it. Therapy meaning that it's curative. But getting around to the turbo cancers, Dalgleish, Professor Dalgleish, now I've got a bit of a problem with him that he was concentrating. I've been reading all his papers over the last couple of years, and Dalgleish is a great guy, absolutely. But he actually almost exclusively puts down the turbo cancers to the boosters. He constantly refers to them as being caused by the boosters. The boosters are the exact same thing as the initial injection. And there's no doubt the more you're boosted, the more of the poison you've got in your system. So I've got a bit of a problem. You see, this is the problem. I'm a doctor, and you know, as is Dalgleish. And Dalgleish is a pathologist, and I'm a GP. But I've been around for a very, very long time, so I do often have points of conflict with the other experts, the other people. You know, so I have a problem with Dalgleish. But you know, sort of overcoming that it isn't about the boosters. It's about, you can't have a booster unless you've had the first one, you know. And if you use the booster, then it's the first tablet. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying speed kills. Yeah, but speed kills, like speed kills when you add it on to 20 miles an hour. When you add 20 miles an hour onto 20 miles an hour, you know what I mean? And becomes 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Or you add another 40. So
Yeah.
it's an accumulative thing, And anyway, getting down to the sort of science of it. The science of it primarily is that they use vehicles to get it in. But in the case of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, they used a lipid nanoparticle. And a lipid nanoparticle is a little ball, microscopic. It's so small it can hardly be seen on a microscope. But these tiny, tiny lipid nanoparticles in which they have the messenger RNA, and these are the problem, because these are actually designed to get by the protective systems in the body. And they manage to actually get the messenger RNA, the viral particles, into your system, but they also suppress the immunity. And cancer, by its nature, each and every one of us at any given time have a potential cancer in us. There's cancer setting up in each and every one of us. And I don't want to frighten people, but those cancer cells are being killed off by our innate immune system.
Yeah.
If you damage the innate immune system, you then allow the cancers to come forward. And that appears to be what is happening. Now, not only are we stripping away our natural immunity to cancer, but we're also facilitating cancer with the spike protein, because the spike protein itself damages our immune system. So you got a double whammy there. You got both the vehicle to take it in, which is the lipid nanoparticle, and the product that's taken into the cell and into the nucleus of the cell, which is going to damage and cause cancers. There's absolutely no doubt. And Ryan Cole from California, he's, again, a brilliant person. Ryan will actually, I spoke to him a couple of years, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and he was on top of it then, that cancers were increasing. A pathologist fundamentally looks at dead tissues. Well, not fundamentally, that's what they do. They look at dead tissues. And when you look at the dead tissues, you can actually tell from the nature of the cell, and particularly the nature of the nucleus, whether it's cancerous or not. And that's what these guys are seeing. And they're seeing them in the droves. So that, again, you got to ask, who's prone to these turbo cancers? Unfortunately, it seems to be younger people. But there again, cancers are more aggressive in younger people generally. Now, we hear of elderly people dying of cancers fundamentally because elderly people die at a greater rate. And eventually, elderly people die of something. They'll either die of sort of, they'll die of, multiple system or multiple organ failure, or cancer or something else will get them. But yeah, as I say, there's no doubt about it, but the vaccines are contributing to an increased incidence, and a major increase in incidence in cancer, and principally in young people.
How are people not seeing this? It's...
The people are not seeing it, again, because of the mendacity and the quisling media. The media are keeping the lid on it, but people are seeing it. Oh, people are seeing it. I say, I go out walking every day, and 3 years ago, when I went walking initially after I was 4 years after I was suspended, the people lots of people coming up to me and say, "Oh, Jerry, it was very wrong what they did to you, whether you were right or wrong." Nobody comes up and says that to me now. Nobody comes up. Nobody throws in whether you were right or wrong.
Yeah.
People come up and say that was very wrong to you, particularly as you were right. And that is the truth. Oh, it's turning, and as soon as, I've always said, this will turn in a major way when some judge somewhere, one of his kids or grandchildren die of a turbo cancer, or he gets a stroke, and they begin to see around them what's happening and say, Jesus, that's the third judge that has died of a cerebrovascular accident or a stroke or something like that. And when it begins to hit home on them, then it'll be easier to win the cases when it's personal.
Yeah, but look at the airline pilots, the amount of airline pilots that have dropped dead in the last 3 years. You know what I mean? It's gone. It's not only that they're dropping dead, but you see, fortunately, in every airline, you got two pilots. You got somebody who can, but sometime it's going to be fluky.
and two of them will drop dead, or one of them will, something will happen. And that's when, and when 350 or 400 people are killed, there again, of course, the media will let out the truth.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. They
Yeah.
can't tell the truth. If they tell the truth, it blows the whole lot out of the water. So yeah.
That's the point. And see, I have made this point, and I've made it on numerous occasions. I honestly believe that the COVID hoax, the pathogenicity hoax. When I say pathogenicity hoax, I'm saying that they were pretending that the COVID virus was deadly. They were pretending that the COVID virus was killing people in nursing homes and that. They weren't. The doctors were killing the people. The system was killing the people in the nursing homes. But the COVID pathogenicity hoax, and then the introduction of the vaccine, I've always said would bring down the globalist agenda. I'm actually beginning to think that maybe the election of Trump will bring down the globalist agenda before we get there.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to push that the WHO. I'm just going to play this video. I downloaded this video there yesterday. It's only 3 minutes long. It's about him disbanding WHO.
Thanks. The World Health Organization has become nothing more than a corrupt globalist scam paid for by the United States but owned and controlled by China. When the China virus reached our shores 3 years ago, the World Health Organization disgracefully covered the tracks of the Chinese Communist Party every single step of the way. For this reason, it was my great honor to terminate America's relationship with the World Health Organization. The United States was paying the World Health Organization almost $500 million a year. When I dropped out, I took it out of there. And for 330 million people, even though China was paying only $40 million for 1.4 billion people. So we had 330, they have 1.4, and we're paying more than 10 times the amount. That's typical for the United States because they don't know what the hell they're doing. Unfortunately, crooked Joe Biden foolishly re-entered the World Health Organization at the full price and without any negotiations or reforms. And now Biden is pushing to bypass the United States Senate to enter a pandemic treaty that would surrender American sovereignty to the World Health Organization, again controlled by China. The draft treaty would require the United States to send vast quantities of medical supplies to other countries in the event of another pandemic, and it would push aggressive censorship of free speech on issues of public health, just like they censored the truth about the Wuhan lab, which I said that's where it came from, remember. Under the next Trump administration, that treaty will be immediately terminated. I would not allow public health to be used as a pretext to advance the march of global government. That's what they're doing, globalists. The United States will withdraw from the corrupt World Health Organization, which, in light of its utter failure on COVID, they had a tremendous disaster on COVID, deserves to be completely abolished and replaced. Then I will work to forge a new coalition of nations that are strongly committed to protecting health while also upholding sovereignty and freedom. I want to thank you very much, but I also want to say this. I could have renegotiated the deal. I could have gone into the World Health Organization for $25 million. Biden didn't take that deal. He's paying almost $500 million. They were so anxious to get the United States back after I terminated the agreement. They were so anxious to get it back that they offered me a deal, $25 to $30 million. And I said, no, I'll wait. Could have gotten it for less, but I didn't want less at that point. We were paying almost $500 million. Could have done it for 25 to 30. Biden took the almost the $500 million deal. He knew he could have gotten back in for less. So why did he pay so much? But that's just one of many things that are wrong with our country. Thank you very much.
That's very interesting. Now, again, I would disagree with Trump there in a sense that it's under the control of China. It's not under the control of China. It's under the control, in effect, of the American neocons and Gates and these people. Like, these are the people who are actually, and the WEF, the World Economic Forum. Remember that. See, he's pushing the bogeyman China, and I suppose as a politician that he has to do. But I would disagree fundamentally that it is a Chinese thing. I'm not saying China are not involved. I'm not saying China isn't a totalitarian system. I'm just saying that I Trump is playing the American politics, to actually, pit America against China. But I don't think it is generally conceded or believed that the virus and eventually the messenger RNA were developed by DARPA, which is in effect the American Defense Association, the American Army, the American Armed Forces developed it, and they put it into the hands of the pharmaceutical companies. It wasn't the pharmaceutical companies that developed it. It was the American Armed Forces, DARPA. I've actually forgotten what DARPA stands for, but I have it written down someplace, but it's an irrelevance. And if somebody wants to know what DARPA means, but
if anyone knows, put it in the comments there, and we'll call it out.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but I'm just not going to change my line of thought at the moment.
Go on,
But as I say, I disagree with him there. There's something I'd also like to. When I first saw that, I wondered whether that was genuine. And remember now, with AI, with artificial intelligence, they're going to be quite capable of putting up a video of you, I, or Trump. Not that I'm putting the three of us into the same category, but they're going to be able to put up a speech saying anything with our voice, with our intonation, with a background, with anything. So it's going to be very, very easy over the next couple of years to hear a video in the voice of somebody. Now, I'm not saying that's the case there, and I'm absolutely convinced that is Trump talking.
Oh, it is, definitely. I think, because it came from his.
It will be very, very easy to fool us into hearing. It's now commonplace to be able to reproduce me talking, or you, or Trump talking. And sounding absolutely coherent, and the lip sync and everything being perfect.
I've seen it.
So as I say, I would disagree that it was not that I don't say that the Chinese system shouldn't be feared, but I think that the deep state should be feared just as much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, WEF definitely has to be feared.
The WEF. And they're not Chinese entities. They are deep state. They're elitists. They're the globalists who are intent on wiping us out, wiping out 2/3 of the population. I'd say they'd be very, very happy if they could get rid of 6 billion people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone just posted there. Bill Gates has been convicted in Holland. He hasn't been convicted. He's up on charges in Holland.
Yeah, he hasn't been convicted
last week.
He's been indicted. He's been brought in on charges. I would believe that when I see it, in a sense that not the indictment or even a case, but anything coming out of it. But there again, you got to realize, with Trump turning in that direction, and particularly if it's true, again, I saw something where Trump is going to get rid of the concept of different types of genders, different genders in that. Now, if that happens, if Trump does turn around, I heard a recording of him saying there's only two genders, male and female.
I have that there as well.
It's going to make Ireland's hate bills and European hate bills very, very difficult and fraught with problems. So we're living in a very, very, as the Chinese say, interesting times.
Somebody just posted there, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA.
No wonder I couldn't remember. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I learned it off about 3 weeks ago, but forgot it. Thanks very much, whoever. So what I'm saying is, and not only did I learn it off, but I read up all on DARPA. I read up on what they do, and I've read up on all the projects, and they put out. Now they do projects in all sorts of things. It isn't just medicine or medical things. Like they do, projects on sort of moon landers and all sorts, different machineries and inventions. And it's fundamentally, the advanced development is a brilliant idea, except that they just went down the wrong road. And but it is an American defense system, and again, there's a huge budget going into it.
Yeah, exactly. You were speaking there a few minutes ago about the COVID, and about COVID didn't really kill people. It was doctors. I'm just gonna present this one here. I'll share the screen. The evidence you stayed at home. I'll read it there now. You can see it. The evidence you stayed at home to protect the NHS, but they gave midazolam to the elderly and falsely told you they were COVID-19 deaths. In March 2020, the British people were told that they must stay at home in order to protect the NHS and save lives. They were also told that the authorities needed just 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Remember that one? Why were the British people instructed to stay at home? Because of the threat of a new and emerging virus, which we're told originated in the city of Wuhan in China. A virus which has claimed the lives of 128,000 to date in the UK, or so we're told. But if we could prove to you that you've given up 15 months, now this is probably a year and a half ago or 2 years old, 15 months and counting of your life due to a lie, but not just any lie, a lie that has involved prematurely ending the lives of thousands upon thousands of people who you were told died of COVID-19, a lie that has involved committing one of the greatest crimes against humanity in living memory, a lie that has required 3 things: fear, your compliance, and a drug known midazolam.
Yeah. Can I come in here?
Oh, yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. No, you're doing an excellent job. I must say, you make an excellent medical secretary. I would take you on. Right. Was there a lie? And again, you hear Trump talking in terms of the virus coming out of Wuhan. This again is a kind of fraught question in the sense that we don't know for definite. All I can say is that initially I can only go on my own experience. My own experience here in Celbridge was that during the December, January, February, March of 2020 or 1920 winter, I saw absolutely nothing outside of what I'd seen since 1980, which was 40 years. Yeah. 40 winters, 40 winter flus, 40 upper respiratory tract infections, seeing probably a couple of thousand. I've seen somewhere between 250 and 300,000 consultations in the last 40 years. That's just consistent working away. But I've seen an awful lot of people. And after doing those sort of numbers, you begin to see, you get good at pattern recognition. And that's something Ryan Cole talks about, is pattern recognition, that you can see patterns. It just comes naturally to it. It's not something you can study. It's something that comes naturally to you after doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. The pattern for 1920 was no different from the pattern during the previous 40 years. So that I'm convinced that there was no virus of any relevance. There was a virus, it was a coronavirus, but it had no more pathogenicity. And I keep saying that. It was a pathogenicity hoax. And you hear Trump blaming Wuhan, the virus, and he called it the Chinese virus. Again, that's just being political. That's playing to his people. And again, unfortunately, it's kind of putting a divide into the world. I don't know whether the virus or any virus was developed in Wuhan. But listen to the logic of this, right? You're a member of DARPA, or you're a member of the Pfizer, or you're a member of... In the evening, you go home to your wife and children, and you've got parents, and you've got family. Like each and every person involved in this has family. Are you going to allow a virus, a deadly virus, out into the community when you've got no control over it?
Exactly.
Hardly. No. That's not logical. So are you going? No. But what you do is then, so you construe this virus, and I've spoken to a guy named J.J. Couey, and J.J. Couey is a microbiologist or an immunologist, or I forget exactly what he is. These guys all blend into the one as far as I'm concerned. But a molecular biologist. JJ initially claimed that there was gain of function, where in effect the virus was altered in the laboratories, and I'm willing to accept that. But if there was a gain of function, I would say the gain of function was to increase the infectivity, and the transmissibility of it, rather than the virulence of it. So that, all right, so you introduce, you introduce changes into it such that it becomes more effective, and then you can fool more people into believing that they got it. Well, mind you, they were doing that with the hoax PCR test anyway, so they probably didn't have to convince people. And then to actually make the prophecy come true, they actually killed off people in the nursing homes.
Yeah.
And they did. Iatrogenic murder. They did it by introducing people onto ventilators. They did it by introducing drugs, midazolam and remdesivir and morphine. And they did it by giving people, anybody with a diagnosis of positive PCR COVID, they then put a do not resuscitate notice on them. A do not resuscitate notice, in effect, from what you hear, it was a death notice.
Yeah.
And the people became dehydrated, and then they were given midazolam. Midazolam is for all the world a kind of Valium type thing, and everybody is familiar with Valium. The Valium would make people drowsy and sort of confused and that. And then, you know, they were telling the family, oh, this has been caused by the virus, by the COVID. Like, it was also insidious and dishonest and positively homicidal. But and then they were intubating people, and they were intubating people and giving them high levels of oxygen. I was actually talking to somebody not so long ago who was telling me a certain hospital, I won't name because it'll reveal who he is, but he was telling me that BOC, the people who supply oxygen to the hospitals, were saying, with that number of patients, you can't be using that amount of oxygen. They were using very high levels of oxygen. High levels of oxygen damage the lungs.
Yeah.
Oxygen is bad for you at high levels. And high levels are, we breathe in oxygen about 20%, 19, 20%. And when in a hospital, you kind of give 25, maybe 23%, 24% of oxygen. And that's what the oxygen is when they stick a thing up your nose. Yeah. They were giving, by all accounts, they were giving almost pure oxygen, or 60, 70% oxygen.
Wow.
That damages the lungs. And that's what people were dying of. So in effect, they knew that. This was not an accident. They knew that. And then the intubations, when they were sticking the tubes down people's throats, they were not doing that for the, and they admitted it was not for the for the good of the patient, that it was in effect to somehow or other, they were thinking that you could take the air coming out of the person and filter it or something. A ridiculous concept, you know. And the idea, I don't know if I said this last week, when I worked in general surgery, if you were operating on an elderly person, the anaesthetist was screaming at you, Jerry, come on, hurry up. I don't want this. You know, if you had to intubate somebody, if you had to paralyze them, their muscles, and you had to put them on, artificial respiration, so you're pumping their lungs. That's all a respirator does. It just blows up the lungs. And the anaesthetist would be kind, Jerry, we got him on here for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, hurry up, finish up there. He's always putting on pressure if it was an elderly patient. Once you put an elderly patient on a respirator and you put them on for any longer than a couple of hours, they're not coming off it.
Yeah.
And they knew that.
Is it true that the midazolam, it actually states that the midazolam and remdesivir is not supposed to be given to patients with respiratory illness?
Both. Well, the remdesivir is different. The remdesivir was actually killing people through through its effect on the internal organs, like the kidneys. Like, it was causing major kidney problems, But they knew that from when it was originally used. They originally used it for Ebola, and they knew it was deadly. Now, Ebola is a different thing. Like, Ebola had a sort of 60, 70% death rate. So there was perhaps a concept that it was half good. But when you've got something that hasn't even got the death rate of a mild winter flu, if it had that, or if a mild winter flu even has a death rate, I'm not sure, because, again, it's all about certification. But when I say, no, the midazolam and the morphine have a contraindication that they're respiratory depressants. The respiratory drive, the need to breathe, is actually cut down by the midazolam and the morphine. And a combination of them is lethal. So, and anybody who's doing it, any nurse who gave it, must have known. She must have known, because prior to, March or April of 2020, she was, if you went in a hospital as a junior doctor, perhaps, and you went in with a syringe into a ward with midazolam or morphine, and the nurse is coming along with you, she normally would, and you went to stick it into an elderly person, they'd be grabbing your arm and say, "Oh, Jerry, that's a respirator. You can't give that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Be sure you
yeah.
know what you're doing." Now, if you did know what you're doing, no, I'm giving this. Don't worry, But and then suddenly they were pumping the midazolam and morphine into people, which is a respiratory depression, and now a respiratory depression just switches off slowly.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't go click, but it switches off the respiratory drive. And once the respiratory drive is gone, well, then your lungs just stop breathing.
Yeah. There's a message there. The system is the problem. It is a legal regime of no accountability for agents of state. The de facto state's contract derives all power from the electorate, who convert to fraud at the legal age of consent. And then there was someone else posted there as well, when you were talking about the people dying. This is just soul destroying, all on their own, those poor people and families.
Yeah.
Who was covering this information up?
Yeah. Well,
Who
the
is
media,
covering up?
the media were covering it up,
Yeah.
The media were covering it up. And the fact of the matter is, and remember, I keep saying this, and I will keep saying this, the people who drove this on knew that there's no need for social distancing.
Yeah.
Knew that I would go so far as say they knew what I knew, that there was no pathogen in the community that was worthy of the lockdowns, of the masking, of the social distancing. And that is one of the most heinous crimes, the idea that elderly people died alone, because that leaves a scar. It leaves a scar on the family, but it particularly leaves a scar, and it should leave a scar on the staff as well, who allowed this happen. To see a person with their daughters and sons outside the window looking in the glass. Now, I'm not saying the staff knew what was going on, but the doctors who were running it, and the doctors who were giving the orders, and the Tony Holihans and the Leo Varadkars knew with absolute certainty that there was nothing there to warrant that. And the quisling media went along with it and didn't provide the questions that should have been asked. Like, as I say, they didn't come near me. Everybody in the country knew that I had been struck off. It was a doctor from Kildare, Dr. Jerry Waters, had been suspended for refusing to give the vaccine. Why didn't one of them come near me?
Yeah, exactly. Why didn't one of them? I'm sorry we weren't going at the time, because we had you on every night.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's the mass media, it's the Irish Times, it's sheer dishonesty and corruption in the Irish Times, the Independent, the Cork Examiner, the RTE, Sky News, Virgin. These people have huge questions to answer. Why did you not go near Jerry Waters? You knew his address, you knew his telephone, and we all had it. It was common knowledge, I'll
tell you when this hit home for me, right? And I'll tell you when a lot of people start thinking that this was really bad. Your man Joe O'Shea did a speech on RTE. Your man Joe O'Shea from Cork, was that his name? Joe O'Shea. He was a presenter. And he called everyone anti-vaxxers, and you're going to kill your granny, and you're going to do that. And I've seen people that I know changing their tune, and thinking this is a real bad virus after that thing he said. And I knew the truth. I was watching it coming out of America. I was watching it coming out of China. I was on top of everything. You know what I mean? As I told you last week, I could probably do, I'm not saying a brain thing, but I could probably do an operation now with all the stuff I'm at the looking online and everything else. I knew what was happening. There was hundreds of doctors coming out in America. I think there was 76 doctors came out in America and joined that alliance, and were telling the truth. So it's disgusting what happened. I actually know a nurse, and I was at a communion there a couple of years ago, and I was an anti-vaxxer, and they didn't want me there, that sort of way. And she was telling, "Oh, it's terrible what's going on. The hospital is full," and the hospital wasn't full.
No, she was lying.
I knew the hospital wasn't full, but yet still, her and all the family shunned me because, oh, she's telling us now the hospital is full and Paul's not believing it. Paul's an outcast, you know, and that's what I got. And I knew well the hospitals weren't full. I knew well. Just
Well,
lies upon
yeah,
lies.
this is the problem with family, and it did divide families. But fortunately, though you and I now are on the right side of history, we are now proven to be right. But my own sister, the day after I was suspended, and it was on the news, my own sister put up a thing. A thing on Facebook. Gladly got my vaccine. Big cheers. Sort of. I got my vaccine today. How great I am. My own sister did that.
Yeah. Listen, I was here and I sat down with my partner and I said, so listen, I said, don't get it yet. I said, if you want to still get it, I said, give it a few months. Let's see how it goes, And I knew she was getting it, so I was never getting it. Because, as I told you last week, a friend of mine said it to me in the December of 2020 on the GAA team. We were breaking up for the Christmas, and he says to me, I'm after being told by my mate that works in Pfizer in New York not to touch it. There's been no testing. It's not. It doesn't do the job. It's not a vaccine. Everything else. 6 months later, I rings him, and his phone rings foreign. I says, "Where are you?" Oh, I'm in Lake Garda. I got vaccinated just to go on holidays. Now, the amount of people that did that is ridiculous. And I tell you what, I'm just going to play this video now. It's only 30 seconds long, right? This is where Tedros Adhanom, or whatever his name is, of WHO said there was no coercion. Okay, I'm just going to play this and we'll come back to it.
WHO did not impose anything on anyone during the COVID-19 pandemic. Not lockdowns, not mask mandates, not vaccine mandates. We don't have the power to do that. We don't want it, and we're not trying to get it. Our job is to support governments with evidence-based guidance, advice, and when needed, supplies to help them protect their people.
I think it's remarkable that somebody can act like that, can lie and lie and lie, and without a blush, as much as a blush.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, he didn't blush, no?
No, he didn't, no. Should this man overseeing the genocide in his own country, for Jesus' sake? You know what I mean? Is he Ethiopian or something like that? Is he?
Yes. But he's not a medical doctor. He's not a medical doctor. Apparently, he was a terrorist.
A terrorist, yeah. What was he called? What was the name of them? Oh, it'll come to me in a few minutes. But yeah, he was. He was a member of a terrorist organization. Yeah, he was. Yeah, definitely.
No, but as I say, like, to hear him say we don't want to take the power to mandate, that's exactly what they want. That's
exactly
what the whole
what he wants, yeah.
That's what the whole pandemic treaty agreement is, to actually be able to take over. But not only do they want to be able to mandate in terms of human illnesses, but they want to be able to mandate in terms of animal illnesses and veterinary things and plant illnesses or plant diseases. These are the most unscrupulous, dishonest, and homicidal or genocidal people ever.
Yeah, I have a lady there after coming in, or Tasha. Dr. Jerry, now this is like being in the toilet again and people asking questions. Dr. Jerry, I have end-stage COPD. Should I get the flu jab on 2 liters of oxygen? I'm on 2 liters of oxygen. Should I get the flu jab?
Well, first of all, I can't give medical advice, and I can't give medical advice on a public forum like this, and without being able to put my stethoscope on her chest. Now, I know she says she's on end-stage COPD. I can't possibly give advice.
That's why I said it's like being in the toilet.
Well, I've been suspended by the medical council, and the medical council are probably watching this. And I would go to jail, or rather, I'm suspended by the High Court. I could go to jail for giving medical advice.
See, at least when I give a bit of advice, it's only about computers, because that's what I do. I fix computers, so we can't kill computers. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, you can. You can put viruses into computers all the time.
You can if you're Bill Gates. So listen. You only have to look at what he done with the Microsoft, with the computers. He created a virus, and then they got an antivirus for it. You know what I mean? And this is exactly what he has done now. You know what I mean? Like Bill Gates says, go on, sorry.
I think killing humans is kind of more important, slightly more, maybe not in his mind, but the murder of a potential murder of billions of people. I keep saying it's the greatest crime in history. There can't be a bigger crime.
Yeah. Well, you look at the Georgia stones as well. They reckon they only want 500 million people on the earth. You know what I mean? They want to get rid of.
Yeah. Well, as I say, you know, paper doesn't refuse ink. I don't. We finish up. Are we finishing up now?
Well, we can finish up if you want, but I have it set for another half an hour. If you want to go another few minutes, it's up to you. I don't mind.
Well, unfortunately, I have another Zoom meeting to go on to.
That's no problem. That's no problem.
And it's something that I kind of take part in and have done for the last number of years. So I kind of have to jump onto one at 8:00. Sorry about that.
Well, you're all right. That's no problem.
I've always felt that you should leave people wanting more than getting bored of you. Yeah. I've no doubt in half an hour they'd be very, very bored of me saying the same things over and over again. But hopefully, Paul, we'll do the same thing next week.
No problem, Jerry.
And maybe people we're going to have to structure this so that we can perhaps
bring
patch
people
in and talk to them.
Yeah.
But again, this is very experimental, and we don't even know whether people want to hear me blathering.
Well, we 500 watching, Jerry. So listen, if people do want to hear it, we 500 watching. So listen, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good for an hourly show.
Paul. Thanks for all your efforts. You've been.
I'll drop you down, Jerry, and I will talk to you later on. Please, God, thank you very much for participating tonight, Dr. Jerry Waters. Well, people, there we are. Dr. Jerry is going to head off there now. I'm not going to continue on because I'm not the doctor here. You know what I mean? I'm not the man who can answer your questions, or I can't give you advice. So listen, it's been brilliant, and thank you very much for watching the second episode of Trust the Science. And talk to you all next week at 7:00. Good night and God bless.